Down goes Cuomo. Down goes Cuomo.
The rent's too high. You know what? The new mayor potentially of New York is going to freeze the rents and everybody eats for free. So they don't have to worry.
Really?
Yeah.
But how about the rich?
No.
Do
Well,
they
no.
get shot?
No. Yes. They get taken away.
Unless rich New Yorkers band together, donate a lot of money, and create a groundswell for a viable alternative to Mamdani, another great American city is going to swirl down the drain.
Wow, way to say the quiet part out loud.
All of this, keep the status quo, didn't work. We're in a new era.
Thank you, my friends.
33-year-old Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, a social media savvy, self-described democratic socialist, has ridden a wave of anti-establishment sentiment to a shocking victory.
I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City.
Last night, Cuomo said he called Mamdani to congratulate him.
Tonight is his night. He deserved it. He won.
Well, you heard that correctly. Zohran Mamdani has shocked the Democratic establishment to its core by beating Andrew Cuomo in the New York City mayoral race. Now, despite being smeared as anti-Semitic, a communist by Republicans and Democrats alike, by the way, Mamdani managed to break through all of that noise to unite a pretty broad coalition of New Yorkers. And we'll get into what that coalition looks like in just a minute. But he also was able to break through look, we'll get into a bit of Zohran Mamdani's, and his name is really difficult to say. I'm not mispronouncing it on purpose. Zohran Mamdani. We'll get into his win and how it's caused like this all-out panic in New York and in the Democratic establishment in just a minute. But first, Cenk, real quick, real concise, just one sentence, initial thoughts.
Down goes Cuomo. Down goes Cuomo. Down goes Cuomo. Our members asked for it, including Bloated Ego on TYT.com. I'm here to deliver, and it is a beautiful moment. The Democratic establishment has suffered a heavy blow, and more blows coming. So it's a great moment. We'll dissect what's next in this race.
So since New York City has ranked choice voting, elections work a little differently from what most Americans are used to. So bear with me as I kind of explain the process. Mamdani's support after the first round of vote continuing will remain below 50%. And that means that the race will formally be decided by ranked choice votes that will be announced beginning on July 1st. Now, with 93% reporting in the first round, as you can see from this graphic, Mamdani was leading with 43.5% of the vote. And since he cross-endorsed with Brad Lander, who's a progressive who came third with 11.4% of the vote, he's predicted to benefit more than Cuomo from the next round of counting. So you guys understand how that works, right? So yeah. Andrew Cuomo, who received 36.4%, has already conceded, although his campaign left the door open for a November run on a different party line, which has happened before. I believe that happened in an election, a local election in Buffalo, New York, which was pretty gross and it totally worked. So I would not be surprised if Cuomo tried this. But Mamdani ran on an economically progressive platform. He did not hide the fact that he identifies as a democratic socialist, and he has promoted policies including a rent freeze on all stabilized tenants, tripling the city's production of affordable union-built rent-stabilized homes, making city buses free, raising taxes on the top 1% of earners and corporations, and creating a network of city-owned grocery stores. So he wants grocery stores to be publicly owned instead of privately owned. Now, here's an outspoken critic. He is an outspoken critic of Israel's genocide in Gaza. He's also very critical of Cuomo, but look, Cuomo's supporters repeatedly accused him of being anti-Semitic, specifically because he's been rightly critical of Israel's conduct. And you might have seen, like, there was this viral video featuring a woman confronting him for being anti-Semitic. And I gotta say, the way he handled that was so good. Like, he didn't lose his patience, he was calm, he explained himself. And look, he's unfortunately being accused of the same thing that we get accused of when we tell the truth and show you evidence of what's happening in Gaza. Now, his supporters, Cuomo supporters, I should say, included Bill Clinton, Mike Bloomberg, Jim Clyburn, and Richie Torres, which tells you everything you need to know about the type of people who wanted Cuomo to win over Mamdani. And amazingly, Politico found that more than 40% of Cuomo's top endorsements by elected officials have come from people who publicly condemned him 4 years ago. It's amazing. Now, just real quick, if you don't remember, Cuomo not only has been credibly accused of gross sexual misconduct by people who worked for him in the past, but he also made the horrible decision to send elderly people who still had COVID back to nursing homes where the virus continued to spread, and a lot of elderly people died as a result. I think that story is something that people should not forget about, because he messed with people's lives and that wasn't okay. I know that these salacious stories tend to get more attention. And by the way, sexual misconduct should absolutely get the attention, but that doesn't mean you should forget about the other horrible things that Cuomo did as a leader, as the former mayor of New York City. Now, yeah, so Cenk, I know you're chomping at the bit, but I'm gonna make you wait for just one more second. Who voted for Mamdani? If you look at the borough level votes, he beat Cuomo in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens, while Cuomo came out ahead in the Bronx and Staten Island, which that doesn't really surprise me. Staten Island tends to be a little more conservative. But in the Bronx, which of course is represented by AOC, I think, and this is just my guess, there has been more of a concern about disorder and crime and stuff like that in that area. So maybe some of Mamdani's policies as it pertains to policing turned them off. That's just my guess. But his coalition, again, largely consisted of a broad range of people, including white, Asian, and Latino voters in economically and racially diverse areas of the city. Notably, he struggled more in middle class, predominantly Black areas in the Bronx and Southeast Queens, where Cuomo retained strong support from his years as governor. Cuomo also, that's right, he was governor. My bad, I made a mistake earlier. So he was governor. Cuomo also won islands of support on affluent Democratic strongholds like the Upper West and East sides of Manhattan, and in Orthodox Jewish enclaves in Brooklyn, where Mamdani's views on Israel alienated some voters. And in a conversation on the Breaking Points / Drop Site live stream last night, Mamdani, communications director, talked about their strategy, how they managed to win, and how they even reached out to they reached out to Trump voters. Interesting. Let's see how that turned out.
After Donald Trump was elected and everybody was in a state of shell shock, what was this about? What happened? What did we do? We said, let's just go ask people. Like, let's go to the hearts of immigrant New York. Let's go to South Richmond Hill. Let's go to Fordham Road. Let's go to working class immigrant and Black and brown neighborhoods that swung big for Trump, and just ask people, why'd you do it? And we really made a sign that said, let's talk politics. This was 5 days after the presidential election. Stood on the corner and said, let's talk. And we heard again and again and again, I used to have more money in my pocket. Things used to be more affordable. The government is not delivering for me, but there are endless wars around the world, And obviously Trump cynically and disingenuously spoke to those things. He also said cheaper prices end the wars, right? And those are the things that we heard all over the city, especially in those neighborhoods. And when Zohran then said, I'm running for mayor to freeze your rent, make buses fast and free, deliver universal child care, they said, I'll come back and I'll vote for you. And we are actually seeing that tonight.
So reaching out to people who voted for Trump seems to have worked in this situation. I could be wrong, but that was my read of it. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, look, that's of course is true, but that's what people have to understand. Reaching out to listen to them doesn't mean that you have to agree with them on their right-wing policies. Zohran didn't agree with them on any of their right-wing policies. And so But that doesn't mean that you have to curse at them. That doesn't mean you don't have to talk to them. It means you listen and then you go, okay, let me pitch my ideas to you based on what I heard from you. And let's see if there's an intersection here. And of course there is. Everybody wants lower prices on housing and many other things that he pushed. So we're gonna do a lot of fun things here. We're gonna talk about his strategy and his substance. One of the fun things I'll tell you about is, did I know this was coming? Okay, I love predictions. I'll tell you about that in a second. But first, I want to explain that was a communications director that you just watched for the campaign, Andrew Bart Epstein. And so I think they did a wonderful, amazing job with communications, not just in reaching out to Trump voters and seeing what they want. That was a part of it and a good part of it, an important part of it. But much more important was, oh my God, his social media, online media engagement was through the roof. And he was so good at it. He was so good at the debates. So look, I'll tell you what I'm most excited about, which is like two things that I get out of this. Number one, the more the establishment is defeated, the happier I am. So in this case, we're defeating the establishment from the left. That's beautiful. And of all the people to defeat in the establishment, Andrew Cuomo, perfect, right? So, and for me, the thing about Andrew Cuomo that always drove me crazy and is related to this race. He always looks out for his donors. He's always trying to protect the status quo. And some of his top donors were real estate donors. They have been historically, and they were in this race. One group alone gave him $2.5 million. So the real estate industry gave him an enormous amount of money just for this, small and quick mayoral race, right? And then Bloomberg gave him $8.3 million. And I love to see that being wasted. That is so beautiful to see, right? So all of this, keep the status quo, didn't work. We're in a new era. We're just saying, oh, it's okay, I'm the Democratic establishment. I know what I'm doing, and just vote for me. I'm the only one who can win. Not working at all anymore. And I'm super psyched about it, right? So why do I think Zohran won? Is it because of, the district? No, Anna, a big part of AOC's district is also in Queens. I think that a couple of things have changed demographically and culturally in New York and across the country that are, I think, a little important, but then I'm gonna get to the big point. So when I remember when, I was involved in the Just Democrat race when AOC won that historic primary also in New York, right? Against Joe Crowley. And in that case, we were rooting for a low voter turnout. We were trying to ambush them, basically. Joe Crowley did not have as much name recognition in that district as they thought he did, and we thought low voter turnout with young, energetic progressives in the district might make the difference, and it did, and that was definitely the right strategy. By the way, run by Showkat Chakrabarti, who's currently running against Nancy Pelosi in a primary. If he takes her out, oh, good night, Irene. The establishment is wiped out. So go check out Showkat's campaign and make sure you're helping there. He could be the next Zohran Mamdani. Okay, so now though, those young progressives are a massive force in New York. We didn't need low voter turnout. This was a higher voter turnout election than historically than in the last couple of decades. And it helped Mamdani, did not hurt Mamdani. That means momentum is on our side, okay? So now when you get to the substance of it, okay, now here's where it gets a little interesting, because when I look at the particular policies that he pushed, I'm so curious about them because they're not the ones I would have picked. I'll be honest with you guys, right? And so, but I'm number one, their change as opposed to the status quo. So great, let's try them. Let's try them and see what happens, right? And I'm genuinely curious to see, can he really raise corporate taxes by that much in New York? Will some of them leave or will all of them stay and then thereby disprove the mythology that they're all going to leave? So I'm very excited about that one. I like that one and I'm curious to see what rate of increase is going to be sustainable, right? That's gonna work, keep the companies there and produce the revenue that we need. He would not back off of the BDS movement against Israel. His strength there was through the roof. I loved it. Okay, so that's my favorite policy that he's got, but I know it doesn't relate much to New York. But so rent control, I've historically think it has problems in the market, but we've got to try to lower the housing prices somehow. Nationally, I think it's by banning private equity from buying residential real estate. That's in our populist playing. In a city, I get why they want to do a rent control freeze. I'm a little worried about how the market dynamics there, but I think it's worth trying and see how it goes. Same thing for school buses, same for free childcare. Can they really do it? Does that make a big difference? And then finally, on defund the police, there's a program to move some of the funding to community service programs. Again, I'm very curious, is that going to work? Could it lower crime? Does it increase crime? Obviously, we will give you an honest assessment of that at some point. And we're not going to play around with the numbers and tell you it worked if it didn't work, or tell you that it didn't work if it did work, right? So we're going to be fair and honest about that. And I want to see him try these things, because change is so much better than not changing. And he's trying to address these folks. And that gets to my most important point, which is, guys, we've been asking for change the whole time. And would I have picked a different policy than government-run grocery stores? Definitely, but maybe I wouldn't have won, right? So he picked these policies, they voted for him. So let's give him a shot to run these policies and see if they're brilliant, see if they totally work. And did I see this coming in? No, I didn't. Because I was used to the AOC era, where you had to have low voter turnout, and if you had, the establishment show up in a race this big, that they were gonna, especially with the ads and stuff, I have seen them overwhelm us time and time again. And Zohran was, not running on like mild policies. He was running on pretty aggressively socialist policies. But I think that his strength, whether the New Yorkers agree with those policies, et cetera, we're gonna find out as we go along. But the fact that he was so strong about it, and said, yeah, that's right. I'm not backing off my position on Israel, and I'm not backing off any of these policies. That was wonderful to see, and the right strategy.
Okay, I need to jump in, especially when you say you didn't expect this to be the outcome of the race. Well, it turns out that Andrew Cuomo's top donor also didn't expect this to be the outcome. And this is amazing. So just bear with me as I read this. This was reported by the New York Times. As donors try to assess their next moves in the mayoral race, one of the biggest donors to Andrew Cuomo's super PAC, the investor Mark Gorton, said he is likely to back Mamdani. That is because of the support that Mamdani had gotten from Brad Lander, who Gorton said he ranked first. I feel like people misunderstood my $250,000 for Cuomo for real enthusiasm, he said in an interview. It was basically, oh, looks like Cuomo is coming back. We don't want to be shut out. Let's try to get on his good side. That's kind of how things work with Cuomo. It's sad political pragmatism. I wish we lived in a world where those sort of things were not useful things to do.
Yeah, that's so telling.
It's amazing.
First of all, I look forward to giving somebody $250,000 just because I'm not enthusiastic about them. Like, wow, what a stunning amount of money to give when you're not enthusiastic. Okay, so I hope he's enthusiastic about Mamdani, because that might be a decent number. But look at the kind of corruption that Andrew Cuomo ran. And this is very true of Cuomo and the Clintons. They would make a list, and if you didn't bribe them, you were gonna be in a lot of trouble. And if you did bribe them, then you were on the good guy list, and you were gonna get a goodie, not from Cuomo, but from the taxpayers.
Isn't that extortion?
Of course it is. I mean, but it's bribery, it's extortion, it's all these things.
So gross.
But the Supreme Court made it all legal. So they're like, oh, it is a campaign contribution. I am speaking to you. So look, it's interesting how quickly Cuomo's donors have given up, how quickly Cuomo gave up. Because technically, Mamdani hasn't won yet. It's 40, he's at 43.6, he's got to get to 50 so that this is the only round of voting, right? And we think he's gonna get to 50 because of the Lander votes and maybe others. But man, Cuomo was like, forget it, I give up right away. Okay, which is great to see. But don't get too excited about that. Anna's definitely right about that race in upstate New York. and how the establishment always comes back. And not only in this case you have the pro-status quo, pro-corporate, pro-real estate, pro-donor community that is going to come in like a bulldozer into the general election race. But you also have the Israel First community that's going to come in, okay? And I'm super proud of the Jewish community in New York that was not shaken by the false accusations of anti-Semitism. There's 1 million Jewish Americans in New York, okay? And a Muslim American just won the Democratic primary in that city. So love you guys. Way to stay strong, way to all be Americans and not buy into the gaslighting and the propaganda. But they're gonna be back in the general election, and it is going to be on steroids when the neocons, et cetera, hit Mamdani.
A final thing that I'll say about Mamdani's win and the fact that he appears poised to win in the end of this election cycle, he front-loaded the economic policies. Okay, he sure would comment on some of the social issues in the country. Obviously, he commented on foreign policy as well as it pertains to what's happening in the Middle East. However, he front-loaded economic policies. And that's what matters to most Americans, especially in a city like New York, where the cost of living is astronomical. And reaching out to people who voted differently, who didn't vote for Democrats, who voted for Trump in the last election cycle is so important. Because even if you can't persuade them, you at least get an understanding of where that base is at, what it is about Trump that persuaded them to vote for a man like that. And again, for everyone who denies that, Trump's faux economic populism is what persuaded people to support him, I think it's pretty clear that in reaching out to these Trump voters and talking about the economic policies that Mamdani wants to champion, who's able to bring some people over onto his side. And so that's how you win. It reminds me of what Trump did in the last presidential election when he spoke before a conference of libertarians who booed him. They totally booed him. Everyone on the left was clowning on him. But I saw it differently because to me, that was Trump going into hostile territory, reaching out to voters and trying to make his case. That's how you win. Unsurprisingly, now that it appears that Democratic-Socialist Zohran Mamdani is poised to win as the new mayor of New York City, his economic wish list has struck terror in the hearts of Wall Street executives, as demonstrated perfectly on CNBC. Take a look.
The rent's too high. You know what? The new mayor potentially of New York is going to freeze the rents and everybody eats for free. So they don't have to worry.
Really?
Yeah.
But how about the rich?
No.
Do they get shot?
No, yes, they get taken away.
Kulaks?
Yes, they get
Is this
taken away.
Lenin
We have to go.
in 23?
We have to leave now.
Not
But
John
everybody
Lennon.
else, there he is, Mamdani.
When
He
Trump-
wants to get the rents down. One good way to
Trump
do it
say-
is to
will
stop
Trump-
all business and drive everybody out. That'll bring the rents down.
Gotham. Have you seen what Batman is up against in Gotham and what the guy running for mayor is up against? That's what it reminds me of. They're taking Wall Streeters and make him walk out onto the ice in the East River as and hope and then they fall through. I mean, there is a class warfare that's going.
So what's happened here, I think,
is the rich.
Part of the reason why President Roosevelt pursued the New Deal is because he wanted to protect capitalism. I'm not kidding. That was literally a quote of his. He saw that the inequality was leading to a rise in socialism in the country. And he was worried that it was going to impact our capitalistic economy. So he's like, the rich have gotten a little too greedy. We need to do something about this. And the same is happening now. But these greedy folks over at CNBC don't want to do a damn thing to fix it. They like the system the way it is. But if you want to see why, or you want to understand why, someone who has identified himself as a socialist openly, overtly, is somehow appealing to the public, it's because all of that inequality has been destroying their lives for decades now. And the other part of it is, Cenk, I gotta admit, even I watched that compilation of CNBC hosts, like injected in my veins. Like watching that panic is kind of cathartic because they got way too greedy, they got way too confident and cocky. And if you want to save capitalism, the American people have to feel that capitalism is working for them. And right now, they're not feeling that way. Inequality has been exploding year after year. People can't afford their freaking rent. So when you have a candidate who says, I'm a socialist and I want to make housing affordable, and the other guy, a corporate Democrat, Andrew Cuomo, has really no solution at all, yeah, it's not surprising that they would support Mamdani over Cuomo. And by the way, Cuomo is now threatening to run in the next round of this ranked choice voting process as an independent, hoping that he can win. We'll see if that works. But what do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, so that would be in the general election, of course. So first of all, I love the smell of establishment panic in the morning. And so that they're 100% panic. Secondly, look, the super important genie has been let out of the bottle here. For my entire life, mainstream media has been trying to make sure that Democrats don't really serve the average voter. And they always do propaganda like, oh, I mean, socialism is going to work here. Okay, what are they like, Mao and like Cuba and Fidel Castro and Mao? Like this is the kind of horse crap propaganda I've heard my whole life. And by the way, not just on Fox News, but all over cable news, right? Anytime you try to help the average American in any way, shape, or form, they smear the living crap out of you, right? So in this case, he's like, look. For example, I don't love rent control. I don't think it's necessarily the right way to keep housing prices down. But should we try something to keep housing prices down? Of course, of course. So Cuomo's answer was, oh, I'm gonna take money from real estate interests and serve them. And that's a terrible answer, terrible, right? And media's like, oh, what a brilliant idea. Take money from real estate interests and let them rob everyone in New York as much as they like. No, not a good idea, awful idea. So Zohran's idea is, hey, I'm going to try to control the pricing somehow, right? And I'm going to try this and let's see if it works. But mainly, I'm addressing your number one concern. See, politics isn't that complicated. You just have to get around mainstream media. And he did through social media and through so many other ways. He got his message to the people. I'm actually going to try to do something about your housing prices. And that's the thing you care most about.
When Catherine Wild, the CEO of Partnership for New York City, was asked about the business community and how they feel about Mamdani, she simply replied, terrified. Bradley Tusk, CEO of Tusk Ventures, warned that while unlikely, New York could go the way of once very prosperous cities like Detroit and Baltimore that had really big tax bases and then got dirty and dangerous, and the taxes went up too much, and people left.
That's not what happened at all.
Okay,
sorry, just jumping in real quick. Things like the car industry got hurt in Detroit. That's what happened in Detroit. These guys love to lie, man. So is Wall Street going to move out of New York because of Mamdani? I would be dramatically surprised. So let's see what happens. But this is a lot of fear mongering. Like don't vote against the rich. Whatever you do, don't vote against the rich.
And Democratic leadership seems super thrilled about this. Obviously, I'm kidding, because if you take a look at how Hakeem Jeffries, who is the House Minority Leader, responded to a question about Mamdani on Morning Joe this morning, you'll kind of get a sense that leadership not so happy. Take a look.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on him ideologically. Is that does he have an ideology that you would want your candidates in 2026 to have?
Well, from the standpoint of House Democrats and what our focus has been, clearly we have an affordability crisis in the United States of America, and our focus will continue to be on driving down the high cost of living in this country. Donald Trump promised to lower costs on day one. Costs haven't gone down, they're going up. He's crashing the economy in real time. His tariffs are gonna impose thousands of dollars in additional cost on everyday Americans per year. And he may even be driving us toward a recession. It's the reason why Donald Trump has become so unpopular.
Okay, so look, I don't know if that was an example of robot Hakeem Jeffries just going back to the Trump bad talking points when he's asked something specific about a local mayoral race. But the fact that he had this inability to say anything about Mamdani specifically. I don't know. It kind of tells me everything I need to know about how shills, corporate goons like Hakeem Jeffries feel about Mamdani and his economic policies. Yeah.
And I think there's two things going on here. Actually, three things happening here. So number one, do you want to run every race in the country with Mamdani's policies that he won in New York City with? No, to be honest, right? Because New York City is deep blue. And so he did a brilliant job of running with the right policies in the right place, right? But if you run with those same exact policies, some of them, by the way, will be very popular in Wichita because everybody cares about housing prices, et cetera. And some of them won't be. And so like if Hakeem Jeffries said, hey, listen, everybody's gonna run their own campaign, but I love the Zohran one, but every candidate is their own person, no problem, right? But he did the corporate robot thing and then he switched to the Donald Trump talking points. You're absolutely right about that. But there's two other reasons why Hakeem Jeffries is concerned that are not legitimate. So one is, this guy is super progressive and in New York. Hakeem Jeffries is from New York and Chuck Schumer is from New York. And they're both worried to death about a progressive primary challenger. So they're like, Mamdani, let me tell you about Donald Trump. Let me tell you about Donald Trump. Yeah, that's what I thought. They're in a cold sweat panic. In fact, if AOC announces a Senate race against Chuck Schumer, boom, it's over. After these results, Chuck Schumer will just retire. There's no way he's gonna get embarrassed by AOC. And everybody knows AOC is gonna win. So that's her Senate seat to pick up if she wants it, right? Schumer will run for the hills. And then there's a third factor. And the third factor is, remember, all these guys are loaded up with AIPAC money. So when they see Mamdani, they've already gotten marching orders. No, that you are all Democratic leadership must be opposed to Mamdani. And they tried to stay out of that race, but we all know they were backing Cuomo, especially Schumer. So now that their guy lost, yeah, they're pretty somber about it.
Yeah. A bunch of right wingers are super Islamophobic and hateful toward him because he's the first Muslim. If he wins, he'd be the first Muslim mayor of New York City. We don't have time to get to all of them, but I'll read what Laura Loomer posted because she's a bigoted piece of trash. She says, if the Muslim Brotherhood would have been designated as a terrorist organization, Zohran Mamdani could have been prevented from running for office. Get right. Listen, honestly, Laura Loomer is like bottom of the barrel, okay? Perfectly happy to risk the lives of our soldiers in wars on behalf of Israel. And she has the audacity to impugn the character of a guy simply because he's Muslim. Simply because he's Muslim. And by the way, you don't like his policies, that's fine. Go ahead and talk about his policies, talk about why you don't like those policies, you don't think they're gonna work. But attacking someone simply because they're Muslim is gross. Just like, maybe I'll put it in the context that Laura Loomer can understand. Just like how it's disgusting when someone is attacked for being Jewish. That's unacceptable, right? So why is it acceptable for her to specifically attack him over his identity? And I've seen it all over the place. Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is disgusting. She shared an image of the Statue of Liberty, obviously wearing, what is that, a niqab?
Burqa.
Or a burqa, yeah. Gross, it's just gross all the way around. Accusations that now Sharia law is coming to New York City. It's pretty gross how bigoted and openly Islamophobic pretty prominent members of the right happen to be. Again, you don't like his policies, attack his policies. But when you attack his identity, makes you look dumb and hateful, and that's it.
Yeah. So Charlie Kirk wrote, 24 years ago, a group of Muslims killed 2,753 people on 9/11. Now a Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. And a Muslim plumber will show up and help you with your sink later today, and a Muslim dentist will remove your cavity. Why are we listing random Muslim folks? So look, you know what's going on here. And this is part of the problem with the radical right. Obviously, it's the main problem with the radical right. They also have their purity tests, but their purity tests are oftentimes based on race, religion, ethnic background. And if you're not one of them, then you're part of the 9/11 bombers. Like, what's amazing to me is like what Anna referred to there. That like if you said this about Jewish people, some like I don't know, Son of Sam was a serial killer in the city in the 1970s, and he was Jewish, and now a Jewish guy has won the mayorship. You'd be like, what? Okay, like number one, enormously hateful, but number two, super random. Are you really that dumb that you think that every Jewish person acts the same? And that's basically what I asked Charlie Kirk in on X. I'm like, do you really think that all Muslims are like the 9/11 bombers? Can anyone really be that ignorant? And then as you see the replies from some of the radical right, the answer is, yeah, a lot of people can be that incredibly ignorant. They really have it in their mind. And it got there partly through right-wing media and partly through mainstream media. And that's why I was so enraged about mainstream media just a couple of days ago, right, on this issue. They really like drilled it into people's heads that Muslims are terrorists and savage and violent, and that's all they are. And so now a lot of radical right believes that, and it's totally nuts. So, all right. Anyways, when he turns out to be a normal mayor, maybe they'll begin to see, oh, Muslims are humans too. Okay, welcome to planet Earth.
This guy makes AOC look like a moderate. He wants government-run grocery stores, plans to make public buses free, is pledging to freeze rent prices, and wants to borrow $70 billion for more affordable housing. Unless rich New Yorkers band together, donate a lot of money, and create a groundswell for a viable alternative to Mamdani, another great American city is gonna swirl down the drain.
Wow, way to say the quiet part out loud, Laura Ingraham. Like, oh, us rich people are really worried about this Zohran Mamdani guy. We got to do something about it. Rich people need to band together. Now, look, Laura Ingraham has joined the chorus of Republicans and corporate Democrats that are absolutely panicking about New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani and his victory over Andrew Cuomo in the New York City mayoral race. Now, the general election hasn't happened yet, but it does appear that he's poised to win. And so Laura Ingraham explicitly calling on rich New Yorkers to come together to take him down really tells you everything you need to know about why certain candidates tend to get targeted, smeared, and destroyed, much like Senator Bernie Sanders was when he was running for president. Now, I want to show you a little more. There's a lot more to get to, including what Bill Ackman is going to try to do to defeat him. But before we get to any of that, Cenk, initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that intro by Laura Ingraham is for the ages. Because I mean, she doesn't realize how funny that is. She's like, this guy wants to do affordable housing and free buses for the masses. Rich people have to band together to make sure this doesn't happen. You're just saying it, right? You know that, right?
Yep.
You're on air. You're saying, hey, rich people, let's make sure that the middle class and the poor don't get anything. And this son of a bitch looks like he's looking out for the average guy. Let's band together, rich. Okay, thank you for the confession, Laura. We appreciate it. Bill Ackman's confession is coming up in a little bit. But we're asking you guys, are they gonna be successful? Because look, on the live chat on YouTube, we're asking whether MAGA is gonna be successful in taking down Zohran Mamdani. And you guys are good and optimistic, 79% saying no. On TYT.com, we're asking, do you think the establishment will be able to take down Mamdani in the general election in New York City? And I'm curious about that as well. Because what we have here is a unique situation, Anna, where we have radical right who's like, oh, Muslim terrorists, hate him, Sharia law, what insanity, stuff like that. In cooperation with and in coalition with establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats. And so they're all unified against them, which makes you want to root for them even more, right? And so will they be able to spend enough money, do enough propaganda, control the media enough to be able to defeat him in the general election? Well, that's another part of the story.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, we can't discount the media's involvement in all of this because Bill Lander, who was the progressive candidate in the mayoral race, was actually on Jake Tapper's show on CNN, of course, to discuss Mamdani's win. And Tapper asked about Mamdani's alleged anti-Semitism. Okay, so he wants the Palestinian people to not be slaughtered. He wants them to be treated with equality and respect. And apparently, if you have those beliefs, you're automatically considered an anti-Semite, especially if you happen to be Muslim. But let's get to Bill Ackman, because Bill Ackman is real scared and he's willing to do something about it. He's willing to put big bucks behind essentially defeating Mamdani in the general election. So he's vowed to back a challenger to Zohran Mamdani to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. In a 1,500-word post on X, Ackman ranted about how dangerous he thinks that Mamdani is. He says, I awoke this morning gravely concerned about New York City. Socialism has no place in the economic capital of our country. The ability for New York City to offer services for the poor and needy, let alone the average New Yorker, is entirely dependent on New York City being a business-friendly environment and a place where wealthy residents are willing to spend 183 days and assume the associated tax burden. Unfortunately, both have already started making arrangements for the exits. You know what? I think Ackman actually makes a really great point. When I think about prosperity for the working class, I really do think about Wall Street, you know? And when I think about socialism, I also think about Wall Street and bailouts. Cenk, back to you.
Yeah, so again, saying the quiet part out loud. He's saying, I am going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars along with my rich friends to buy this seat. Thank you for the confession. Okay, appreciate it. So then now New York, you've got a choice. Are you going to let really rich people on Wall Street buy the election so that all the costs are put on you and they get a free ride? So Ackman has two reasons why he's so animated by Zohran Mamdani. One, he's a giant bigot and racist. So if he sees someone that's Muslim, and in this case, Mamdani happens to be Indian from Uganda. And so he looks at him and goes, he doesn't bow down to Israel. Terrorist, right? When in reality, Bill Ackman is pro-genocide. So he's much, much closer to a terrorist. Well, it's not even close. Mamdani hates terrorism and is not at all anti-Semitic, and he wants peace for Israel and Palestine, but Ackman doesn't want that. Ackman is pro-slaughter, and so he's saying, I want more of a slaughterhouse in Gaza, and this guy, I know he's the mayor of New York, but it doesn't affect anything, but it bothers me. He's not even pro-genocide, it bothers me, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, are you bothered, billionaire? I'm sorry, are you bothered that we're not doing enough genocides for your liking? So, and this is a sick state of our so-called democracy, where oligarchs feel no pressure at all not to say these things out loud and in public. And they're saying, oh, I will be buying this election on behalf of Israel and my other rich friends on Wall Street here in New York. And that's the second reason why Ackman's so motivated. And that's why Mamdani has become this like target for all of the most toxic people in the country. Because like he animates the rich too, like the super rich that love to corrupt the government, not the super rich that don't corrupt the government. They're different categories, okay? But people who are used to buying political seats like Ackman, they're like, we didn't even buy this one. And he's saying that he would raise corporate taxes for New York City from around 7% to around 11%, an extra 4%. I do declare, fellow billionaires, we've got a terrorist here looking to raise our taxes. And he's not even in favor of genocide. No, we will be defeating him with all of our money. We will purchase the seat. Well, I hope that money gets shoved straight up your ass. Now, rhetorically, metaphorically, okay, not literally. So don't get all upset and say, oh, I will now spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to defeat the young Turks. They are anti-genocide, I despise them. And I want more tax cuts. Yeah, we got it, billionaire Sir Topham Hat mother effer. We got it.
Okay, Get your phone ready so you can scroll through Twitter as I go through the rest of this story, because I'm not going to go back to you for a while. But let me just say, in regard to shoving money up his ass, listen, Bill Ackman's a wealthy man. And wealthy people love to do all sorts of weird new wave health treatments. Who knows what kind of expensive enemas that guy is up to. But nonetheless, let me give you some more details about how, he originally felt depressed about Mamdani, but now he says he's feeling optimistic about the situation. Now, why is that? The good news, he writes, is that there are other charismatic, intelligent, articulate, handsome, charming, young, yet more experienced and, importantly, more centrist politicians who are New York residents eligible for office. Okay, well, why didn't they run? They didn't run. He says there are also extremely talented members of the New York business community who could be superb mayors. Bloomberg being the reference standard from the past. Wow, this guy's super out of touch. And look, he plans to help bankroll any so-called centrists that choose to challenge Mamdani. Importantly, he writes, there are hundreds of millions of dollars of capital available to back a competitor to Mamdani that can be put together overnight. Believe me, I am in the text strings and the WhatsApp groups so that a great alternative candidate won't spend any time raising funds. If someone is ready to raise their hand, I will take care of the fundraising. I'm sure he will. Now, he goes on and on and on about how it would be a great opportunity for a challenger to essentially build name recognition and be a hero for the Democratic Party. And by the way, the type of candidate that he's talking about, dime a dozen. Okay, centrist Democrats, dime a dozen. Corporate Democrats, dime a dozen. I think what you're experiencing right now with the rise of Mamdani is a rejection of the types of, honestly, policies that both corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats have been championing. I think they're sick. American people are sick of being nickel and dimed, and they want a better system. They want to see an end to the ever-growing wealth inequality in this country. And so when you have someone who focuses heavily on economic policies, of course he's going to be incredibly appealing to the people of New York City, which has an extremely high cost of living. Now, he, meaning Ackman, actually has someone superb in mind for a write-in campaign, but said that since he's a Trump supporter, his public endorsement would probably hurt the candidate. So he's waiting for someone else to make the first move. And his fellow rich New Yorkers, meanwhile, are equally concerned and already scheming with their own plans. So Semaphore reported on Wednesday that many others in the city's business community are considering shifting their support from Cuomo to Eric Adams. And according to New York's David Freelander, several leaders in the real estate and business world had a group phone call to discuss what to do after Mamdani's victory. So make no mistake about it, these people definitely want to destroy Mamdani's chances of winning in the general election. It remains to be seen whether or not they'll succeed. But money talks, and I am a little bit concerned, and all sorts of tricks have been played in the past that unfortunately have worked. Yesterday we talked about upstate New York. There was a socialist who won a local race, at least the first round, and then lost in the general because the Democrat challenging this individual decided to run as an independent. Now, in this case, Cuomo appears to have dropped out of the race entirely, which is a good sign. But we'll see if Bill Ackman and the rest of the people panicking about Mamdani will find a strategy that will be successful. Cenk.
Yeah, they're thinking of doing a write-in candidate, which is harder, but people have won as a write-in candidate before, especially if you pour a lot of money into it. And some of the Democratic donors poured a lot of money into having Joe Biden needlessly win the New Hampshire primary as a write-in candidate last time around. And so maybe they can muster up the money. And they have a secret weapon I'll get to in a second, but more confessions that I liked. He's like, well, I'm not gonna tell you the candidate I prefer, but we'll pick him and then I'll pretend that I had nothing to do with it. You're saying things in public, right? So you just said you're a Trump supporting billionaire who will pick the Democratic candidate and then pretend he didn't.
Yep.
You just said it. And in the post, you talked about hundreds of millions of dollars. And then we'll take the billionaire money Democrat and Republican, doesn't matter. They're all part of the uniparty establishment, et cetera. And then we'll use it to try to defeat a person that's trying to represent the average man, because we hate the average man. You know you're saying things in public, right? He didn't say he hates the average man, that's in between the lines. And all of this about Bill Ackman is my opinion. You can form any opinion you like. Maybe you could read his post by on your own and say, oh my God, I love this. Finally, somebody standing up for billionaires. Now, when he says it and Anna says it, that there's so many candidates we could have to run here. It's true, because the reason they're a dime a dozen is because they're all corporate robots off the Bill Ackman and billionaire assembly line. They're like, okay, will you do what we want? Yes, 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 yes. Will you do anything to help the average person? No, no, no. Doesn't matter, it's a good assembly line. Buttigieg and everybody else, just Newsom, keep going, keep going. Mitch McConnell, whoever, it doesn't matter, they're all corporate robots. So, and so lastly, you guys are a little bit more optimistic than I am. I wanted to see how optimistic you are. Will the establishment be able to defeat Mamdani in the general election? And you guys say 86-14, no. And I hope you're right, and keep voting, TYT.com. And so the reason why I'm a little worried, and what I want to give you guys a heads up about is, look, they're not going to defeat him with just commercials, the ads. That doesn't work as much anymore. And how many ads can you buy? You could swamp all of New York, which is very, very expensive, but with hundreds of millions of dollars, you could do it, right? But I don't think that's going to get the job done. I think that what I want you to know and look for going forward from this day to the day of the general election in New York is watch what the mainstream media does, because they're the actual hatchet men. Remember, the Ackman money goes into buying ads in mainstream media, and then mainstream media coincidentally supports their candidate 100%, and then digs and digs and digs and tries to find something wrong with Mamdani, and then comes out and goes, aha! We have this and this and this. And a Republican congressman today already at it. He found a rap lyric in something Mamdani sang once, and he's like, yeah! He's supporting the wrong people in a rap line or whatever. So you're gonna see 200 stories like that as mainstream media on purpose is all negative against Mamdani going forward, and they will try to bury him. It'll be the media that does it. They're the culprit. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.